Are you ready for rapid fire?
Always. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. So we know who the scout team quarterback is going to be for Notre Dame facing Navy this week.
I mean, if Buchner's going to be the scout team quarterback, I'm sure he's going to get some scout team quarterback reps, along with Anthony Rizak, who's been the scout team quarterback ever since CJ has been out, and so both of those guys will simulate the Navy quarterback.
All right, Tyler Buchner, baby. What do you think, Trevor?
I think that's the best option for them to do the scout team quarterback against, in Navy week prep, because he is a guy that can hurt you through the air. Like, I mean, Tyler Buchner, as he showed in years past at Notre Dame, like he's not going to go out and dice up a defense, but you do have to be prepared for him as a passer, right? So that's exactly who Navy is this year. I think we're going to have content coming out about it all week, but I mean, Navy is a team that ranks, like I said, in the top, let's see, in yards per attempt, they're second in the country. Yards per completion, they're second in the country. They've only allowed 3 sacks this year. So it is an explosive team when they want to be through the air, because you get sucked into the run so much. But love the move to put Tyler Buchner into the mix at scout team quarterback. He's a guy that came back to the program and was like, I want to help out in any way that I can. And I'm sure that Army and Navy week was circled on the calendar.
I mean, here's for everybody who's been asking, is Tyler Buchner going to play quarterback again? Here's your chance. Here's Tyler Buchner. He's going to be the scout team, one of the scout team quarterbacks, along with Rizak this week. And Blake Horvath, the Navy quarterback, the guy scored some touchdowns this season, and I think I think it's great to have a different level of athleticism to give Notre Dame the looks in this game. It all week leading up to this game. Like, that's, Marcus Freeman's talked about it, and you hear every coach talk about it. It's one thing to go against it in practice, but these option teams have this offense down, have their rhythm down to a precision, especially when they're 7 weeks into the season. So, Tyler Buchner is not going to have that specific kind of rhythm down, but because he is a different level athlete, I think that gives them at least a much closer look to what they're going to see on Saturday when you're facing a guy like Buchner all week in practice.
Yeah, I agree. I think Notre Dame, in the weeks that they have, or in the years that they have beat Navy in the past, right, it's because they prepared really well. Not one time has Notre Dame gone out in games where they've lost to Navy, or in games where it was even a close game, did they come out and be like, they're just so much more athletic and faster than we thought. Like, right? It's all about the week of preparation for Notre Dame. So, but I agree with you. I mean, it is going to be interesting to see how it's going to be in the middle of the year for Notre Dame. This is an offense that has been now refined, and their quarterback Blake Horvath is, I think he has 671 rushing yards on the season and 10 rushing touchdowns. So, he's a guy that can make plays through the air and with his legs. So, I'm going to be interested to see how Tyler Buchner gets the team prepped. It's going to be interesting.
Jason McHugh asking if Buchner transferred and then came back. He did. He went to Alabama. He played football at Alabama last fall, came back for the spring semester, played on the lacrosse team, and is now a walk-on with the football team.
Yep.
So, yep. And he has been predominantly a walk-on wide receiver, and that's why it is at least somewhat news that Tyler Buchner is a scout team quarterback this week.
Mm-hmm.
So Billy Schrauth could play this week. Here is Freeman on what that comeback has looked like.
I was able to get some scouted periods last week. That was his first time he was able to do actual football practice actually football stuff, not doing rehab. But it was limited in terms of what he was able to do. And this week it would increase more. But again, his role is still to be determined.
So interesting. His role is to be determined. Scale of 1 to 10. How important is Schrauth's return, Trevor?
I think it depends on how healthy he is when he does return. I think if it's fully healthy, I mean, we just watched the interior of Notre Dame's offensive line, for lack of better words, get bullied on Saturday. And Billy Schrauth was one of, if not your best offensive lineman coming into the start of the season after Jagasaw goes down, right? him and Ashton Craig were kind of the anchors in the middle, and they're both hurt now. So, I mean, importance level, it's up there, 7, 8, but Navy is always a really, really physical game. And it's not because of the sheer size of Navy, but it's just, how they play, right? So, I mean, I want Billy Schrauth to come back, but I don't want him to come back at 80% and then get banged up again in a Navy game. And then we're talking about, he might make it back for playoffs,
See, and that's the thing, like he says he'll be available, but, like exactly what that's going to look like, like, do you even want him coming back against Navy this week if they're still trying to figure out his role? Like, is it worth it even throwing him out there as a guard on the field goal team or any of that kind of stuff? I don't know. It just feels like if they're trying to figure that out, it seems like with a bye coming up, it makes more sense just to wait, save it for Florida State when you can be, that much more confident, I guess, that he's 100%.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
But, in terms of his importance and what he could mean to the line, I'd put it at an 8, assuming, again, not for this week, but I'm thinking big picture moving forward.
Absolutely.
Like, somewhere around an 8 to have a guy who, you still need some more physicality on that offensive line, especially in the running game. I do think that's an area where they can obviously continue to be better. And, Stephen, we were mentioning this earlier, Navy very physical at the line of scrimmage. Your memory does serve you correct on that. And that's why it's like, I'd be a little hesitant, I think, in bringing in a guy who's coming back from an ankle injury like that.
Yeah, it's not as physical as it has been in previous years. Now that there's like different rules instilled around like cut blocks and going at a player's knees, and because Navy would do that routinely, not for the sake of being dirty. It's just, I mean, they were going up against, when they would play Notre Dame, guards who were 6'6", 330, and their biggest defensive tackle is 6 foot 285, right? So they did it out of necessity, and now the rules have kind of changed a little bit. So it's not as physical, but I say that very lightly. It is still a very physical football game.
So you may have heard, we had this super chat from Cobras Only. He said, breaking, per ESPN, Notre Dame has a 63% chance to make the college football playoff. Fill in the blank. ESPN's prolonged emphasis on Notre Dame's potential college football playoff selection during their broadcast Saturday was blank.
Overkilled, overdone, redundant, ridiculous. I mean, look, I understand that it's on ESPN, so like every game that's on there hammering playoff implications and what it means, but I mean, those numbers are seared into my brain. 63% for Notre Dame.
63%.
It's 63% if Notre Dame beats Georgia Tech. It drops down to a 20%, which will be their lowest, and except for when they lost to Northern Illinois, and then their playoff chances dropped down to a 23%. But after they beat Texas A&M in College Station, it was at 71%. It's been steadily climbing ever since. So it's just, I mean, it got carried away, but I get it. That I think we're 3 weeks away now from the first playoff poll coming out. So they're just really pushing this, in case anybody forgot, in the middle of week 8, it's expanded playoffs this year, guys. So just in case people need the reminder.
It was beyond annoying, though. Like, it's one thing, and like they just came in hot with it too. Like putting that 63% and the 20% if they had lost and all that stuff up there. They just kept beating it and beating it and beating it. And it's like, okay, we get it, and like I know Louis Riddick talks predominantly NFL stuff, but like, he works with Ryan Clark. I don't know how closely he works with Ryan Clark, but they both work at ESPN. Like, could you have picked Ryan Clark's brain a little bit, like to find out a little something about Notre Dame? Because it just felt like neither one of those guys really had very much prepared, in terms of this team and what they knew about this team. They just, anytime something happened, they wanted to just go back and beat this horse again about college football playoff chances. It just seemed really odd. It's like, feel free to talk about the actual game that's going on in front of you. It seemed really odd that was, like you talk about narratives, that was obviously the predominant narrative of that game. For whatever reason, they decided to go that way.
Well, it was weird. They were talking like the way the commentary was going in the game. They were making it sound like Notre Dame was winning 56-0. And like, that just wasn't like, there was still a football game going on. Now, was it close? Was it that competitive? No, Notre Dame had just got done rattling off like 24 straight points. So like, I get it. I will say to Lou Riddick's credit, the play-by-play announcer, and I forgot his name.
Bob Wischusen.
Thank you. And Bob was he kept bringing up like, well, I mean, Notre Dame could find that, like, if the group of 5 team goes undefeated and we don't know what happens in the Big Ten, even if Notre Dame runs the table, they could be looking at being that 13th team on the outside looking in. And Lou Riddick
Getting
was
left
like,
out.
yeah, and Lou Riddick was like, I mean, no, like, it would have to be just the picture perfect scenario for the Big Ten for that to even remotely happen. And even then, you're not going to leave a Notre Dame team out. I know we're going to talk. Yeah.
And again, like, this is mid to late October. Like, a month from now, maybe this makes more sense to, for so much of this playoff talk to be taking over a broadcast like that. A month from now, it's a completely different conversation. But now you're at the midway point of the season. It just felt like way too much, way too overboard for where we are on the schedule right now. Because like you said, I mean, and to me, it just kind of, I guess I was surprised at just how much, fans just kind of laughed at it and made fun of it, rather than, like, I don't think they got the reaction they were looking for in this whole thing.
No, I think they were just trying to stir up like, well, what if Notre Dame can't make the play? Like, look, if Notre Dame runs the table, they're in the playoffs. Like, it's just that simple based on what the schedule looks like for the teams above them too. I mean, Alabama's now on the outside looking in for the playoffs. They have 2 losses and still have to play an LSU team that's ranked ahead of them. They have to play an Auburn team that just took Missouri down to the wire. Not saying that Auburn's a world beater, but I mean, outside of the Georgia game, Alabama hasn't looked like world beaters. So like, there's a lot that has to go into the rest of this season. I mean, Ohio State still has to play Penn State. There's a lot of games left to be. But I mean, at this point, now you have to have the conversation. Ohio State still has to play IU. So, it's going to be interesting how the rest of the season unfolds, man.
And that's the thing. There's still a lot to, like Army and Navy, both undefeated right now. Well, there's no way both of them are going to be undefeated at the end of the season. There's a chance one of them could be undefeated at the end of the season, but they've got to play each other, maybe even twice. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's just still so much. There's half a season still to play out.
Oh yeah.
So that's why just very premature, I thought. But it didn't just stop with the overabundance of college football playoff talk. They also, Wischusen and Riddick, inferred, maybe even more than inferred, insinuated that part of Marcus Freeman's decision-making process for those fakes was style points for the college football playoff committee. And Marcus Freeman talked today during his press conference about going for it on 4th down, the fake field goal, the fake punt when they were up by 17 points in the 4th quarter.
No, it was just, at that moment, when I think you're talking about the fake punt and the fake field goals. Like, at that moment, I felt like that was the right decision. Really, regardless of the score at that point, it was like, we want to steal possession. We're in a position where we can't go for the field goal. I really don't want to punt in this situation. If we can fake it here and they give us the look, let's do it. And that's why we called it. I felt good about that play at that moment. Again, I tell our players all the time, like, the future's uncertain. So why spend time worrying about making a decision today about what the committee or somebody else is going to think? I just felt like in that moment, that's what we needed to do, and that's why we called it.
He talked a little bit about it after the game as well, about stealing possessions and Georgia Tech, with time of possession, the way they can control the clock. And, again, they had a 7-minute touchdown drive the first time they scored a touchdown. So do you buy or sell any of the fakes being influenced by Marcus Freeman's desire for style points with the playoff committee as they surmise?
No, I don't. I don't think it's style points. Like, look at this from a macro view, right? Like, if the committee's like, well, I don't know if Notre Dame should make the playoffs this year, guys. They ran a fake punt and a fake field goal against Georgia Tech.
They sure look
gotta
good
be
running
in.
those fakes against Georgia Tech. Yeah.
Like, it's not that. And if you want any further evidence that this wasn't to run up the score to build style points, after they ran a fake field goal, the offense did nothing. After they ran the fake punt, they did nothing, and then kicked a field goal again. So like, it's
tried to kick a field goal. They missed a field goal.
Yeah, fair enough. So I don't think that it was for style points. I mean, even the eye test to some degree. There was one of the sideline reporters sat in on like a mock like playoff ranking, and she was talking about it like midway through the first quarter coming out of a commercial break. And she even mentioned that like margin of victory isn't really weighed. Like they weigh who you beat, and but like the committee doesn't have time to go and sit down and watch every single game that every team played and be like, yo, that decision to go for that fake field goal, Marcus Freeman, man, he earned some style points. Like, I don't think that's it. I don't.
It's just, again, it's ridiculous to even think that would cross a head coach's mind in that situation, because it was still like the fake punt was still relatively early in the fourth quarter when that happened, and they're up by 17. Because, the other side of this is also, and we can get to this in a second, like Georgia Tech people being, some being incensed just at the idea that Notre Dame did fake. Let's remember it was a 17-point game at the time of these fakes, but so many of these fakes, whether it's a fake punt, a fake field goal, whatever, it is so much about the specific look you are going to get from the opponent. And that's one thing that Freeman, again, talked about in his post-game press conference, was Georgia Tech has a tendency to come hard, for the block, and so they had been looking at this, again, because I think especially from a special team standpoint, if you're Marty Biaggi, you get into the middle of the season. And so now you see a lot of a team's sort of personality on special teams. Their personality, their tendencies start to come out, and you go, okay, they're going to do this. What can we do against this look? And they got the look that, that they had been practicing for. Freeman talked about the fact they had practiced that specific fake punt for a couple of weeks once they started to see some looks from Georgia Tech, and they knew it was going to be coming up. So they practiced it for a couple of weeks. They got the look that they were expecting. You're only up by 17, so you run the fake. You're near midfield. Like every indicator is there. You run the fake. There was no reason not to run the fake. And I have zero reason to believe that style points had anything at all to do with it.
Well, if it comes down to a point where Notre Dame has to run a fake punt at some point during the game, I now have confidence that they have executed one in a live game. You know how mad fans would be if Notre Dame tried a fake punt in a crucial spot in the game, and Marcus Freeman's answer was, I mean, we tried it in practice. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, right. I feel a lot more confident in that. A lot of it is like based on the look that you get. And now teams have to be wary, thinking big picture here, that down the road, they might rip off a fake. So we can't send 8 rushing at the punter, right? Because you get Jeremiah Love on the outside, and that there's just no chance that a perimeter blocker on punt return is stopping Jeremiah Love in the open field.
Well, and again, I guess Jesse actually told me that he read some Georgia Tech reporter was, like taking shots at Marcus Freeman, wasn't happy about the fact that they ran the fake. You're only up by 17 points. Like early in the fourth, you're only up by 17. It's not like you're blowing this team out. I think you said it early. It's not like it's 55-0. You're only up by 3 scores at that point. So, again, like your job is to stop it if you're Georgia Tech.
I was just about to say that.
That's like you run, you stop it. Notre Dame, just like Notre Dame's job is to stop Georgia Tech if they had opted to do the same kind of thing. That's really what it comes down to.
Well, I agree. And I think that goes above any team that's not just Georgia Tech. Like, well, you were up 17. Okay, don't be down 17. I don't know what to tell you. Like, at the end of the day, the sign of a great football team is one that's willing to go out and run their offense and run their defense and run, you know what I mean? Like Al Golden throughout the season, even when Notre Dame has had big lead, like Notre Dame was beating Purdue 66-7 and was still sending pressure on second down.
Yeah.
Like it's just when you have an identity as a football team, like that's just who you are. It's not, well, they did it to run up the score. And it's like, well, that's just how the team is, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you know,
It's like pressing, full court press basketball, when you're up by 30 or whatever late in the game. Some teams just press all game, like they don't know how not to press, I think. So,
yeah.
All right. So maybe the most divisive issue, I don't know how much this came up Saturday after the game. I'm sure it came up to some extent. Blue jerseys with white pants. Do you buy or sell the look?
So real quick, one, I buy it, but it's interesting that was Notre Dame's uniform combo, because I think there was a show. It was when you and I did the mailbag on Friday. Somebody asked somebody brought up uniform combos.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? Yep.
And I was like, the blue with the white, like I think it'd look weird. I'm more of a traditionalist. I like the gold pants, and I'm not gonna lie, the white pants looked really clean. They did. Yeah. This is coming from a guy who's wearing a white quarter zip and a white undershirt, and I have white shoes on. So like I think it looked good. What do you think?
I got a text from a Notre Dame grad who was not happy at all. He was asking, you've got to find out how they make these decisions. Who's making this decision? I'm like, the captains vote on it. Yeah, but who even proposes it to? Look, it's one game. It's one game. They wore white pants with blue jerseys. And remember, this was technically Georgia Tech's home game. They decided to wear all white at home. So that's why Notre Dame got to wear the blue jerseys, in that game to begin with. I thought it looked pretty good, but like as Michael Hahn says, at the end of the day, who cares? They're uniforms.
If one of the hottest topics for discussion for the Notre Dame fan base is what uniforms they were wearing because they had that convincing of a win, I think we're in a good spot, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not like they're going to turn it into their regular uniform. It's a one-off deal. They wore them once, and they're the same white pants, of course, that they wore when they wore the green jerseys a couple of weeks ago. I thought it looked pretty solid. It was a nice alternate look. You do it every once in a while, like I don't understand why, I realize traditionalists are going to traditionalist, I guess. I think that's what it comes down to.
Well, it's just, again, it's pick your poison, because there's going to be some fans who are like, man, I wish we had uniform combos like Oregon or Ohio State or yada, yada, yada. And then the second Notre Dame does it, it's like, why are we not in white uniforms and gold pants and gold helmets? What is this? Like, this isn't Notre Dame. So it's just can't please everybody. I'm impartial.
Yeah, it is better than the pinstripes, as Joe says. And if you didn't like this uniform look, you might not want to watch the Notre Dame Navy game coming up next month, because I didn't have a problem, sort of like seeing them when they announced them. But remember, it's like the blue-gray, the blue-gray uniforms with kind of the Gothic numbers and that
and the
kind of stuff.
Are huge. Like the gold lettering is a little.
They're gonna look different, guys and gals. They're gonna look different. If you didn't like blue with white pants, there's no way you're gonna like what they're gonna wear in the Army-Navy game. I'm telling you right now. Beefeater. Notre Dame is faster in the white pants. It's just science. Yeah, I used to have an argument like a long time ago when Notre Dame would wear the black shoes when not everyone was wearing black shoes. I'm like, oh, you just look tougher. Makes you look slower, but you're actually fast. That's why you wear the black shoes. What's crazier, Trevor? Texas fans throwing trash on the field after the pass interference call against the Longhorns, or officials overturning the call after the delay that was caused by having to clean up the trash on the field?
I think the officials overturning the call. From an etiquette standpoint, you just don't do that. But I mean, you have over 100,000 fans in a stadium who have been most likely getting after it all day, waiting for this night game. There is a horrible call, but I think it's even crazier to reverse the call, because it just kind of, it's not a good look. Because I will say, at least it was like the right call, like on the field, was overturning the call.
They got the call right.
Right.
Yeah.
But the way that it looked is now like, all right, well, I guess if the home crowd just throws a big enough temper tantrum, then
And
we'll
that's the
overturn
thing.
the call.
Yeah, like what are you
Yeah.
incentivizing here? Now Texas is going to have to pay a $250,000 fine, justifiably so, for it. But I heard Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports, he was at the game and he recounted the whole thing. They had spotted the ball for play, like after the pass interference call. So Georgia was going to have the ball. They had spotted it. And then, of course, the trash starts being thrown out on the field. So they've got to stop everything down. So at that point, the official who threw the flag goes over to the Texas sideline and he's getting an earful from Steve Sarkisian. And of course, just like at a Notre Dame home game with the big video monitor, they showed that replay over and over and over again inside the stadium, which of course they didn't tell you on the TV broadcast. They're showing that over and over and over. And so while they're cleaning up trash, this official leaves Sarkisian. He goes back over to the other officials and they change the call. I mean, it's great that they actually got the call right, but they never would have had the time to do it if the trash wasn't thrown on the field and they had to delay play like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It was a bad look overall. It's a bad look for the etiquette of Texas's fan base in the stadium. It's a bad look for the officials. Look, I'm happy that they ended up making the right call. But at some point, when you're a ref, there's just calls that you're going to miss, whether home teams like it or not. And I mean, look, guys, we're Notre Dame fans. We've seen blown calls all the time. We've seen calls that go in favor of Notre Dame. We've seen calls that go in favor of other teams. And it doesn't correct it when you just fix it way after the fact because, it was a bad look.
No, absolutely. Like Steven says, they look up at the scoreboard and they see the replay, but you're not supposed to do that in terms of that's not supposed to, you can't change a call because of that. That's a rule. It's not just you're not supposed to, that's an actual rule that you can't do that. It's, you make the call. And if you want a conference, one guy sees things differently than you saw, that's fine. But the replay monitor is not allowed to influence how you call a play. So,
well, yeah, I mean,
but again, the home stadium, it's at Texas, so of course they're going to play it over and over and over again. Again, just like they do at Notre Dame, and a lot of times you do feel, I have felt like if they put that up on the video board, they haven't changed the call at Notre Dame Stadium, but I do feel like maybe within a play or two, you see kind of a makeup call sometimes, if it's obvious that the officials got it wrong, you'll see a makeup call, kind of go the other way.
Yeah, it's kind of that game within the game kind of thing. So yeah, I was at the Tennessee State game last year, and it was when Devin Ford was returning a kickoff, clear targeting. He fumbled the ball. Tennessee State got the ball inside of the red zone, and they didn't call targeting. And after it was overturned, the video board played the video of Devin Ford just getting, crown of the helmet, everything, definition of targeting.
Yep.
I think they replayed it 6 or 7 times. Crowd was fired up. Then they blocked the field goal, and it was awesome. So who cares? But it was, it was.
And it was cool. Never a game again after that. Yeah.
Sure wasn't. Sure wasn't.
I'm going to slip one more question in here. Monday Night Football, of course, tonight. Chargers Cardinals is going to be the first ever Monday Night Football game available. You guessed it, streaming only. What do you think? Now this is a Monday night doubleheader, so you got Ravens Buccaneers as well. But what do you think about Monday Night Football streaming only on the old ESPN platform?
Personally, I don't like it. I get that you're trying to do it to get people to subscribe, but I feel like you have to do that with more marquee games than the Chargers and the Cardinals. If I'm just being 100% honest, I don't know of anybody, at least that I know within my circle or with anybody that I know relatively even close, that are like, yo, I got to get ESPN Plus tonight because the Chargers are playing the Cardinals. So yeah, I just don't like when it becomes really verticaled like that. I don't even like that Notre Dame has the Peacock thing. I think it's silly.
You and a lot of people. You and a lot of people. That's right. I think it's silly as well. I think probably the only reason they're doing this is because of the fact that it is a Monday night doubleheader. But, quite honestly, if you want to get, guarantee that I'm not going to watch, just make it an exclusive game with two teams that I don't care about. Like if it was my team, of course I'm going to find a way. I'm going to have to watch it, but I'm not just going to, as a casual fan, sit down and go, oh yeah, I'm going to pay for streaming so I can watch Chargers Cardinals today. It's not going to happen. Going back to the Texas thing, Steven brings up a great point. He said the thing that he said about the Dodgers, because remember they threw some stuff on the field playoff series or so, take the alcohol away from Texas Stadium. And I did hear that they're, maybe kind of assessing the way they're doing alcohol. But I mean, if there's an argument against selling alcohol at your games, case in point, Saturday night when you got fans throwing bottles and trash out there on the field.
Yeah, I think it's more of a, I mean, this is just me personally, and this goes beyond just Texas. This is just the example that we're using. But I don't think alcohol is a problem. I think it's the person that's the problem. I feel like if you're willing to throw trash and water bottles onto a field, I think you're doing that whether you have beer or not. That's just me.
No, that's a good point.
And alcohol kind of takes away that filter, sure, but
right.
I don't know if, I mean, you look at the amount of stadiums in college football that sell alcohol,
and as soon as one person does it, obviously, there's the pack mentality.
Yeah,
kind of.
Oh yeah,
took over at that point with all that stuff. Then you got to get the cheerleaders involved and get them out there picking up trash.
Shout out to the cheer squad. They cleaned that up in
15
seconds.
They got it done. They got it done. Great job. Somebody was doing their job out there. All right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight. And again, don't forget, coming up on tomorrow's show, we will have us some whiteboard. We'll talk more specifics about Navy, and Jesse is going to bring out the whiteboard and take a look at Navy's offense and some of the wrinkles that they've thrown into this thing this year as well. So looking forward to that. Trevor, enjoyed it as always. Good seeing you again, my friend. I will talk to you soon. Everybody else, we will talk to you soon as well. Hit that like button, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.